you've got 700 billion in homes for sale in the US, which is a record. Yet the market is still frozen, and it cites a few reasons as to why. One of those reasons is home prices. Home prices are still high and rising, despite the fact that homes have been sitting on the market for a while. And the other big reason, if you will, are interest rates. Interest rates aren't quite as low as people would like them to be. Currently, right now, they're hovering just below 7%. And so you've got interest rates that are higher than what people would like, home prices that are much higher than what people would like. And so regardless of the fact that we've had more inventory on the market, people are still not wanting to dip their toe in the water of home ownership, if you will. Another thing that I did read in this article stated that about 44% of listings out there, which accounts for about $331 billion worth of homes that are currently for sale, have been on the market for over 60 days. And as a real estate agent, you're a real estate agent. That's, a longer period of time than what most sellers would like to have their home on the market. Most sellers would like to sell that home within the first, 30 days or less, or, at least maybe month and a half. But 44%.
It's just not that kind of party anymore. I've been telling people, y'all got to come out of 2020, and 2021. It ain't that kind of party no more.
It's not, but people are still, wanting to linger around because everyone still remembers. I don't even call it the good old days because it was very competitive and really hard to buy a home during that time frame. If you could afford a home, which many people could because interest rates were, next to nothing. It was just so hard because all the companies and corporations who had all the money were just outbidding you for everything so that they could capitalize on those low interest rates on their end. And, it was just, I wouldn't even call it the good old days. It was just, I'd say it was better to purchase a home if you could have before 2020, but even after 2020 and 2022, 2023, home prices were still cheaper than what you're seeing now in 2024 and 2025. So,
inflation has not just hit the stores. I believe it's hit the housing market as well. Everything has gone up, and that's just what it is. I think what's interesting, though, is a lot of times when you have higher interest rates, and this is one thing that one of the articles said, when you have higher interest rates, typically the home prices kind of lower so that, it can kind of balance itself out. But this particular market has been very stubborn in that the interest rates are higher and the home prices, one of the articles said that they just kind of keep creeping up. Now, I guess from month to month, they have cooled a little bit, but for the most part, the home prices keep creeping up. And I think one of those reasons is because a lot of the sellers that are in the market right now, purchased not too long ago. They have this wonderful interest rate because at first the sellers were kind of hesitant to put their house on the market because they knew that they weren't going to get this kind of interest rate if they tried to purchase again. But now they're like, well, I need to sell. I need the money, or I want to get out from up under this debt. I mean, whether you look, whatever the interest rate is, you still have debt. And so I think that's one of the reasons why, because, they can't, if you're selling after 3 years, you don't have a lot of equity. So the numbers are going to be tight, so you can't afford to sell and give people, huge discounts, unfortunately.
So Redfin said that prices rose 1.4% nationally, even as the number of homes for sale jumped almost 17%. So you have almost 17% more homes available for sale, which means people aren't buying up these homes like they were. And prices are still going up, which is typically not how that happens. Usually as inventory increases, supply and demand, economics 101, high supply, low demand, you've got lower prices. When you've got low supply, high demand, you get higher prices. So supply is increasing, demand is decreasing, but we still have prices going up. So that's kind
I
of
mean,
the
listen, we dropped the price $1,500. Okay, we gave them what they wanted, and they still ain't biting. I don't know what's going on.
a whole 1,500.
1.5K. Okay.
Man, pack up the car. It's time to take the trip.
Stop it.
We going to Disneyland.
This is oh, but I told my seller today, I said, we have not gotten an offer over 340K, even though we came on the market at 359 and we have dropped twice. And right now we're at 345. I said, we can take the house off the market and put it back on, which costs me $100 every time I do that. And we've already done it once. Or, we can drop it to 340. But the thing is, the more you give, the more the buyer's going to take. If we ever did get a full price offer, we were being asked for 5,000, 7.5 K in closing costs. So I said, there's the danger in that, because if we drop it to 340, we literally have no wiggle room to give them anything. And 340 is just about the lowest that we can go, where she walks away with a decent amount and the buyer can get what they need. So it's just, it's one of those things. It really is.
So there are two things. When I first read this article, and I still am along the same lines of what I'm about to say, is that, well, 700 billion, that has more to do with how many homes are, or how much home prices are.
Yes.
Because if you have 10 homes and those 10 homes are all $500,000 homes, that's $5 million right there that you've got to, in inventory, but that's $5 million over 10 homes. If you had $100,000 homes, or $200,000 homes, you could get a lot more homes before you could get to that $5 million mark. And so I'm like, okay, well, there's just the huge increase in houses. Like, oh, we've got so much inventory. Look at all these $600,000 homes out here. People aren't snapping up these $500,000 homes. It's like, well, yeah, no one can afford those homes. So that was my initial thought. And I'm still, somewhat along the lines of, I think because home prices, I think the national average of home prices is like in the 400,000s. I believe, let me look this up really quick. But while I'm looking that up, I'll say the other thing that I was going to say is that in that same article, it did say that if you're going by the numbers of homes that are for sale across the country, inventory is at a 5-year high, which I did think was interesting because so many homes got snapped off the market in 2020, and we're 5 years, since 2020. And so we're at the most inventory we've had since, this time in 2020, which I thought was really interesting. So I was like, okay, it's not just 700 billion because homes are, twice as much as what they used to be, 8 years ago, 10 years ago. But there is that thing of there is actually more inventory now than what we had 5 years ago as well. So,
they use those big numbers as shock value,
Yeah.
But of course, like you said, if there are $500,000 homes that are being sold, then that's obviously going to push that average up. But think about it. As we have discussed in previous podcasts, the lower price homes are getting snatched up a lot of times very quickly by investors or by most buyers, because even as a loan officer, I'm sure you've seen, the average person is probably going to qualify for more around the 300, 350 mark or lower. You're not going to get a whole bunch of loans that are just, people are getting pre-approved for 450, 500, 600, like they are in the lower amounts. And,
Yes.
Obviously people who have those higher priced homes have a bigger bill and thus a larger reason that they want to, get rid of or sell their home. So, of course, those numbers are going to be inflated because most of those people are, I've seen more 1 point, however many million dollar homes on the market now than ever before. So,
And so in looking this up, and this is according to the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis, the average list price of a home in the United States is approximately $503,800. So if you go back and you can just research this, like literally just a couple years ago, it was 400 and something, but pre-pandemic, it was 300 something. I mean, it was, much less than what it is now, but yeah, 500, over $500,000 is the average list price of a home, which is, in my opinion, kind of crazy, but
that
also
is crazy.
It points to why so many people are flocking to our crowded state here in Georgia, because that is not, you can find a lot of homes for much less than $500,000 in Georgia and live very comfortably in a home that's less than $500,000. But the fact that you can go a lot of places and, you go to San Diego, 500K is not going to get you in the door. Same thing with LA, same thing with, anything in California, essentially.
A 1-bedroom, that's what you can get for $500,000.
A 1-bedroom in someone else's home. They'll sell you that.
You can buy half the basement. At least you get your own private entrance.
They'll sell you the ADU, the accessory dwelling unit, and you can live in that for $500,000.
With a half bath. You got to take baths in the sink.
I mean, it's just getting ridiculous. But
not funny at all. I'm sorry, y'all.
Well, you know what? I think there is. It's hard to say a silver lining, but actually, no. I think silver lining would be a more appropriate choice of word or phrase, if you will. That in this market, one of the things that people can really look for is the opportunity to try and negotiate for seller concessions and seller contributions, because that pendulum, regardless of what's happening to home prices right now, it is swinging in the direction of being a buyer's market. And I think that with that pendulum swinging in that opposite direction, we've been in a seller's market for, a number of years now. And so with that pendulum swinging back toward buyers, I think it's a great opportunity for buyers who are looking to purchase a home to, get a little bit more aggressive in trying to negotiate some of those seller contributions, seller concessions, because if you got sellers that have homes that they're trying to get, offload, and they've been on the market, 44% of them on the market for at least 60 days. I mean, these sellers are still paying taxes. They're still paying insurance. They're still making a mortgage payment if there's debt on that home. So they may be more willing to, part with some of that cash that they want to receive out of their closing, just so that they can get the homes sold and stop all the bleeding of the taxes and everything, and they can get on to the next phase of their life. Because if you got a home that you need to sell in order to purchase another home, you might be more willing to part with, a little bit of cash so that you can get on with whatever it is you're trying to get on with, with that next step of your journey or whatever. So that's something that I think presents an opportunity, silver lining, if you will, for home buyers rather.
I'm about to say now, okay.
not sellers, but home buyers.
The home sellers, your silver lining is you get to get out from up under it, but you gotta, you're not gonna get out from up under that mortgage and those taxes without giving probably more than you anticipated. But just hang on, hold on, and don't let go. It's coming. It's coming.
And it's not completely, in the way I see it, not completely a downside for the sellers in giving some of that up to get your home sold, because how much equity did you pick up over the last 5 years? If you are a seller who bought your home in 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, and it's 2025 now, you picked up a good bit of equity in that home, for a short period of time. The amount of equity you picked up in that short period of time is normally something that takes twice as long, to pick up, or whatever. So that's something that I think, at least should be accounted for, where it's like you're not losing out essentially. You're getting out, you're going to be in the positive. And I'm not one to tell you what to do with your money. And if you want to capitalize on every single dollar, you keep your home on the market as long as you want to keep it on the market. No one's going to make
Christmas time. We'll be celebrating Christmas together. You and your realtor will be celebrating Christmas together.
Exactly. And you know what? If you want to hold on to that house, because you have some sellers that don't need to sell and they're just going to hold out till they get top dollar. And that's your prerogative. You want to wait till that price comes up to where it makes sense for you. By all means. But if you're a buyer, my advice is for you to actually jump into the market sooner rather than later. And the reason is because as that pendulum continues to swing in the direction towards the buyers, and you can correct me if you think if you think differently, but as that pendulum continues to swing in the direction towards the buyers, one would think it's going to be more and more favorable for me as a home buyer to purchase. So I should wait until we get to that pendulum way over here, where now I have the pick of the litter, if you will. I can get whatever home I want. I can negotiate it a lot better. However, there are two things that I think are going to be in conjunction with that huge pendulum swing if we do see that. One is going to be coming right after a recession. So if we go into a recession, generally you see a lot of things start to drop. However, the country is in a point where everybody's trying to hold on to all of their money, because you're going to need that for all your essentials. You're going to need to be buying food. You're going to need to be buying gas. You're going to need to be paying utilities, all of your other essentials that you're going to need that, happens in a recession. You're not going to have excess cash that you're going to try to throw toward purchasing a home. And that's for most people. Now, you will have some people that are very frugal, very, good at planning and saving and investing and waiting on these opportunities. That ain't most Americans. Most Americans aren't sitting on a wad of cash just waiting to deploy it for the, opportune moment. So that's the one thing, is I think that when that pendulum does swing, it's going to be during a time of recession where you're not even going to be in a position where you can purchase a home. Your cash might be less because of what's happening in the economy at the time.
Or even just worth less. I mean, that's just the time value of money. Your money is always going to be worth a little bit more if you do something with it today than if you hold on to it and wait, because as time goes on, prices generally raise. We don't really see prices go back down.
No.
For essentials,
correct.
Yeah.
But the second thing, if that opportune moment is not preceded by a recession or coming along in conjunction with a recession, then it's going to come along at a time where it's going to be the opportune moment for a ton of people, not just you. Because when home prices drop and the market is perfect for you, it's going to be perfect for 10,000 other people that are waiting on that same opportunity. And now you're in the position where you're battling with everyone else in the housing market to try and get those few homes that are available for sale. You're trying to, snatch up whatever you can. You're outbidding one another, and prices are getting higher than what you could have gotten them for if you had purchased 6 months ago, a year ago, all because you wanted to wait until the quote unquote home prices dropped or interest rates dropped or the environment looked great for you. And it looks great for you. Again, it's going to look great for everybody. And everybody's going to be in that whole frenzy. If we're not in a recession where everyone's like, I'm not purchasing right now because we're in a recession, a lot of uncertainty, little money, or we're not in a recession, everybody's trying to purchase at the same time. Neither of those are going to be great for you, which is why I think that it's going to be better for you to get into a home sooner rather than later, because I just think that in the long run is really going to play to your benefit, if you will, to just have that home already secured. So when the market does change, if your interest rates drop, refinance, get a lower rate, get a lower payment. But you already have the home. You're not battling to try and get that home.
Yeah, and remember I was telling you one way I know that this is a seller's market, and I'm sorry, a buyer's market, and that there is more inventory than ever before, is
Mhm.
because how I can tell is because I literally have 5 listings right now as we speak. I'm not sure that I've had that many listings in a while. Um, I have a commercial listing. I have a moderately priced residential. I have a higher priced residential. I have a land listing, and I have a mobile home listing.
Mm.
So it's generally, and you know, kind of my career over the last couple of years, I've always had a pretty good mix of both sellers and buyers. I
Mhm.
have 0 buyers right now. I have 0 buyers right now. I've had 0. I have been trying since the beginning of the year to have at least one buyer, and I've only closed with one buyer, and that was back in February this year. And he got pre-approved, I think in November. We started looking last year, so we only just happened to close, and it was in January or February, one of them.
Mhm.
So, and I have an abundance of listings and no buyers, and that one listing that I've had the longest has been sitting. And the commercial listing, of course, that those always take a little bit longer to move, but that's how I can tell, is just that everybody wants to sell. Who wants to buy? I don't know. And then I was going to ask you also, Frederick, if if you feel you're still as busy as you had been processing loan applications. Have you seen maybe a dip or a drop in applications, or even in the amount that people are getting approved for, or kind of what trends you've seen?
So it's funny you say that because I have actually, this year started off as being one of my better years that I've had, a start to. It's been a really great start to the year. Um, that being said, I've taken a lot of applications. I have a bunch of pre-approvals that I've written for individuals who currently are pre-approved right now. However, they're not finding homes. Whether that be they haven't found the home that they like, or they haven't found a home in their price range, and a number of them, it's the latter. Um,
Yeah.
they're just not finding homes. So I have about 6 or so pre-approvals that of individuals who are pre-approved, but they're kind of just sitting right now, not really, making a move on the market. And that's actually one of the things that was mentioned in the article as well, is that with home prices and everything that's going on, you have a lot of buyers who or would be buyers who aren't interested in buying, or buyers that would have otherwise purchased a home, people that will get under contract. And then they're seeing a lot more buyers that are just willing to walk away and not actually continue
Yeah.
on all the way through and have that purchase as well. That was something they mentioned in the article as well, with just buyers that'll go through the process and then, they're, I don't want it anymore. And then they'll just walk away.
And it's
So,
interesting because everybody knows that you can, if you feel like a price is too high as a buyer,
mhm.
just offer whatever it is that you feel it's worth, and do some negotiation and get into the house. But it's like, people, if it's not priced exactly right, these buyers are like, we're not even gonna bid on it. We're not even gonna put an offer in. And of course, there's always that fear of offending the seller. You don't want to offend the seller with too low ball of an offer, but it's like, okay, well, how low do you want to go? I'm not talking about, $20,000 lower, but you
Mhm.
know, that's the danger in overpricing your home as a seller in this market, hoping that you'll get a little bit more. It's either going to have the great effect of someone's going to go ahead and bid on it anyway because they love it that much, or because there's so many other homes to choose from right now as well. It's going to have the exact opposite effect, and you're not going to get offers at all
Mhm.
because it's just too high. There's no in between right now. When it's a buyer's market, there's really not a lot of negotiating that's going to be going on for the sellers, because there's so many more other homes to choose from. And if yours isn't the highest and the greatest and the best, most quality, upgraded, whatever, you're going to be
Mhm.
sitting. You're just going to be sitting.
So one last thing that I will say before we wrap everything up is the Another thing that I have heard from buyers in the market, because I do check in with them as a lender to just, see how they're going, if they're, how the house search has been going and everything like that, because I'm not on that end of things. And one of the things I have heard frequently from buyers, again, a lot of my pre-approvals who have not been able to find homes, is that the quality of the home that they're able to find has been below what they would like for the homes that are in their price range. If their price range is 250, 300, 350, the quality of what they are finding in that price range, they're like, oh, it needs so many repairs. It needs, this and that. And a lot of people don't want to make those repairs. They don't want to, or they don't have the money to make those repairs. They might end up getting into the home, but if it needs this work done, then it's like, I can't do the work because maybe they only have, so much money in the bank and they want to keep some in reserves for, emergencies, or, or they don't want to empty it all and be house poor, as they would say, having dumped everything they had into this house. And so they start looking at new constructions. New constructions aren't what they used to be 15 years ago, where it's like, oh, new construction homes, from the 250s and up. It's like new constructions from the 380s and up, from the 400s and up. And a lot of buyers can't afford $400,000 home at a 6.5%, 7% interest rate. So that's something that has just been, I guess you could say, taxing a lot of buyers. It's been also, I think you could say, roughly a lot of others, just people not finding what they want, people not wanting to settle and dump $300,000 into a fixer upper, which is, to even say that is, I remember when buying a $300,000 home in Atlanta, it's like you were living in a nice house if you had a $300,000 home. But now it's like, wow, 250, 300, you might have to. And so, some gunshots that I heard in the back. Shooting in the front.
My love goes bang, bang, bang.
It's just, oh my goodness. It's like, I would have never thought it would have happened so quickly. Like to just, within like less than 2 decades, you just go from, this is like a really nice, elaborate home, to this is a fixer upper at the same price point in less than 2 decades. Like that is just, to me, that's just crazy how quickly that pendulum has just swung. And so, yeah, I think that's something that at least my heart goes out to a lot of the buyers out there who want to become homeowners, because it's still the number one way to build wealth in America. Homeowners, the median net worth of homeowners is more than 40 times higher than the median net worth of renters.
Yep.
Homeowners are able to save more money. Savings for homeowners is higher than savings for renters. Homeowners are more involved in their communities than what renters are. There are so many benefits to being a homeowner, but to see so many people that aren't able to accomplish that just because home prices are so high. And at some point, it's, the interest rates are what the interest rates are. They can go up, they can go down. But as long as home prices continue to go up, even if interest rates were to stay the same, eventually people just aren't going to be able to afford purchasing a home. So,
right.
Just something to think about if you're sitting on the fence. Time is not waiting, and neither are these home prices at the current values. They will continue to increase because these cities are still growing. At least Atlanta is. We are not a decreasing population city.
Right.
But anyways, yeah, that's what we have. So tune in on Fridays. We'll be dropping a new episode every Friday, and then tune in on Tuesdays for Home Finance Hacks, live 7 p.m. Eastern time. And till next time, take care, be blessed, and we'll see you next week.